Today we're going to paint a beautiful little bird sitting on a branch. I start by masking off the bird and the branch so I can quickly paint the background. I've used clear cover to do this. You can also use masking tape. I'm going to use dark greens in the background because I want the lovely bright colors of the bird to stand out as much as possible. Just block in a few random shades of green and then blend them together. We can't add any detail here, otherwise the background is going to compete with the bird for attention, and we don't want that. The bird must be the star of the show. With the bird, I'll start by painting the body first. That way the feathers will overlap naturally. Although the feathers on the body are yellow, I'll first block it in with Payne's grey because the skin of the bird is shining through the feathers here and there. So we need to get that effect in as well. To paint the feathers, we'll gradually use lighter and lighter yellows. The darkest yellow has heaps of Payne's grey in it, and then I'll gradually add more and more cadmium yellow into the mix so that it gets lighter and brighter, until eventually I'm using neat cadmium yellow. The secret to painting the feathers is actually to not paint them at all. If you look at the feathers on the body carefully, you'll see that they are matted, so you actually can't see individual feathers at all. What you can, however, see are the general directions that the hairs on the feathers are following. And this is what we are going to paint. So start with the darkest yellow and paint these general directions in using short, sharp strokes. I'm using a soft full bit because that's my favorite brush, but you can also use a fine liner. What you're trying to achieve is a series of overlapping strokes, gradually going lighter and lighter in the correct areas. To paint the legs, use Payne's grey and highlight it with white. Now, birds have really ugly legs, so don't worry too much about trying to make them look pretty. Now we can move on to the wings. Overall, they seem to be dark on the sides, so I'll use French ultramarine there, and then towards the top and the back of the bird, I'll use more Cerluean. To get these shadows between the wings, I'm going to pop in lines of Payne's grey using a fine liner. And all I'm trying to do there is just follow the curve of the wing and get these lines as parallel as what I can. But don't count each feather and try and get as many lines in. That's not necessary. Just the repetition of the lines is good enough to suggest the feathers. Then use some neat Cerluean to highlight between those shadows to show that the top of the feathers are getting more sunlight. Towards the back, the feathers are more purple, so I'm going to add some red into the blue. Highlight the edges with white, and this white fades away into the blue highlight that we added earlier. Here I'm just going to add a few highlights and shadows where I see them. At the top of the body, the feathers matte again, just like they did at the bottom of the bird. So block in the area with the purple feather color and paint in the directions with short, sharp, overlapping strokes of white paint. Now I'll suggest the detail using a few dark purple strokes for contrast. The bottom of the tail feather is a quick shading along the length of the feather to show that it's concave. Then use white for the reflection on the edges. Here I've darkened up the cast shadow a little bit more to make sure that the wing lifts up off the body. Now let's move on to paint the head. I start by blocking in the black and the white areas, but I don't fade them into each other. We'll do that using a fine liner and a tapping motion to get a mottled type of shading. And this will trick your eye into thinking it can see individual feathers without you actually having to paint them. The only feather detail we're going to paint here is where the white overlaps the black by the neck area. And even then, it's just a few little stripes. Everywhere else, it's just a few taps to get the tonal value correct. I shade in the beak using Payne's grey, white, and a touch of raw umber. Now block in the eye using black and add a reflection with white. Add a few dabs of blue to the top of the head to complete the bird, and then we can move on to the wood. as you can see, this wood is pretty well weathered, but painting it isn't going to be difficult at all. Start off by mixing a few of the colors that you see on the wood. I see brown, black, a yellowy color, a pinky color, a grey color, and a burnt sienna color. The length of the wood has a stripy effect, so I drag these colors in as randomly as I can along the length of the wood. The edge is painted with black and grey in a dabbing motion. And that's all you need to create this lovely rough wood effect. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please like and comment. And of course, don't forget to subscribe for more tutorials.